Welcome to Walking the London Road for the final time in 2025. This week, Will, Connor and myself have built our 11s for the year. For Oxford United, of course, this includes the back end of the 24-25 campaign and the start of the 25-26 campaign. Suffice to say, is not an awful lot of inclusions from the 25-26 campaign. So, the way this is going to work is we're going to go in order. Will's going to talk about his lineup first, and then as we go through, you'll notice there's some similarities and some differences, and we'll decide on a final 11 to represent Oxford United this year. So, let's start off, Will, with your 11. You've picked Jamie Cumming in goal, Sam Long, Ben Nelson, Kieran Brown, Jack Curry, Cameron Brannigan, Brian De Keersmaker, Philip Krastev, Ruben Rodriguez, Stan Mills, and Will Lancashire. Defence is pretty... I think that pretty much speaks for itself, doesn't it? But Jack Curry over any other left-backs?
Yeah, I was sort of debating with myself, do I put Greg Lee in there? Because he was pretty good in the tail end of last season, and he's also quite an attacking defender. Pretty much a wing back, which I quite like, but I think Jack Curry's he's been quite impressive and actually quite consistent this season, I thought. Bar one or two mistakes, obviously the penalty he gave away against, I think it was Blackburn. Other than that, I think he's been quite impressive. I think just to run through it, I mean, obviously Jamie Cumming in goal, as great as Ingram has been this year, I think Jamie Cumming was a brilliant shot stopper last season. He's tapered off a little bit this season, but then I think every player in the squad has. Jamie Cumming is the reason we got a lot of the points that we got last season were because of Jamie Cumming. Even in games that we lost, he was brilliant. I'm thinking back to, it wasn't in 2025, but Coventry at the start of last season. If you remember that away game, he was just flying about the goal, saving everything. I put Sam Long there. I could have put Brody Spencer in, but Brody Spencer, I mean, not to his discredit, he hasn't really played as much as we would have liked with the season. Sam Long, I feel like he was really strong at the end of last season. Big moments like the goal against Sheffield Wednesday. He's a player sort of similar to Cam Brannigan, like he sort of wears his heart on his sleeve. I know he's a local player as well, so that sort of appeals to me. Kieran Brown as a centre back, he has his gaffes, he has his moments where you think like, what's he doing? But I also think generally he's like pretty sound centre back, very commanding, gets a goal every now and again as well. And then obviously Ben Nelson was a fantastic player. Big shame that he left. For the midfield, also I think I'll just quickly point on the formation, the 4-2-3-1. That's just because I'm very nostalgic for last season when we actually won football games under Gary Rowett. Yeah. I thought that worked quite well, and I quite like that formation. I mean, Cameron Brannigan, that's pretty obvious. He's a fan favourite, and he's an absolute workhorse. Again, like Sam Long, wears his heart on his sleeve. Scores bangers. You know, you think Cardiff that game as well. The free kicks that he scored this season. Brian De Keersmaker for his quality, like the balls that he's putting in, the goal that he got against Preston North End, his play, just his general sort of like football intelligence, I'd say has sort of earned him place there.
Yeah.
And then if we'll go for like the three sort of in the upper midfield, I mean, Stan Mills, I was a bit confused whether to put him in starting 11 because he's usually like our super sub. He's usually the guy who we bring on to sort of inject pace. But given his performances this season, I didn't know if I could justify putting Shami Plaheta in that position instead. So I went for Stan Mills. I think his performances speak for themselves. I think he's a brilliant player. Just a shame he can't quite last the 90 minutes now, unfortunately. And I still think he's got a lot more to show us this season than he has done. And then Ruben Rodriguez as well. Again, he played very well last season, especially when it rained. When it rained, he was brilliant. I got a couple of goals in him as well. And then the one I was really confused on was Krastev. I didn't know whether to include him or not, but I've decided to. Again, I think a bit like Stan Mills, he hasn't really shown us his full potential. I think he could have shown us a lot more this season. But there's been little sparks about him that we've seen. We also know he's a very good player. I mean, he's an international player, so that has to count for something. He's very tricksy. Like, he can skip in and out of defenders. He has pace. He has a bit of strength about him as well, which is sort of missing in the squad, I feel. So that's why I decided to include him. And then Will Lancashire, pretty obvious. I mean, Mark Harris was great in the first half of last season, but he hasn't been great in 2025. I'm pretty sure you can count on one hand the number of goals he scored this year. And Lancashire's he's our top scorer this season, so it's obvious that he's going to be put in there. So I think, obviously, on balance, it's mostly players from this season, which is pretty bizarre considering how poor we've been. But I'd say that's why I've gone with a few players I'm sort of nostalgic for: Rodriguez, Ben Nelson, Cam Brannigan when he's not injured, players like that. But yeah, I think that is my best 11 for 2025.
Connor, there's a little spoiler warning. We'll get onto Connor's lineup in a little bit. You didn't include Filip Krastev. Obviously, as Will mentioned, the likes of De Keersmacher, Krastev, Rodriguez, Lancashire. We've only got half a season's worth of evidence to go on kind of who's had a great year. Was Krastev in contention for you, or were you kind of leaning towards other of our wide players that we've had over the past year?
I feel like that's a bit of a loaded question given my lineup. But with Krastev specifically, I was quite excited about him coming into our club. But apart from the first game he had at Bristol City, I don't think that he's really lived up to some of those hopes that I had of him. Like he's a tricky player. He can run at a man. He's direct, but it's decision making that a lot of time is just quite frankly infuriating, and it's a bit like Placheta that some of his decision makings at times it's a bit detrimental to the team, and you can't see that there's going to be any positive impact or improvement from him, unfortunately.
Well, was there any other left wingers you considered? Because obviously you mentioned Shemi, who obviously under Rout has played more of on the right hand side, cutting in. No play for Siriki Dembele?
No, not really. I mean, no. He's a decent player, but like he's very tricky. But like, he always takes a couple touches too many. He tries to pass the ball into the net. I say it's in the nicest possible way, but he is at times infuriating to watch. For Oxford United, so no, I didn't really consider him. And I mean, to be fair, like I do agree with what Connor said about Krastev. He hasn't quite lived up to expectations, but I've sort of included him because I still feel like there's so much more that we could have got from. There's so much more that we can get from him because we know he is a brilliant player. Maybe in a different formation, maybe in this formation, he'd sort of live more up to standards. I'm not quite sure.
So this is where the interesting stuff begins, because obviously we go from a 4-2-3-1, like we'll mention, to Connor's Crimes Against Football, a 5-4-1. I think in reality, Connor, would you say it would line up more as a 3-6-1?
Yeah, probably. It would probably line up more. I think I'll probably go back three, but with wing backs, and then I'd keep Volksy in the 6, and then put De Keersmacher and Brannigan, as you say, in the central midfield, but have Rodriguez almost acting as like a shadow striker, and then coming back when needed, and then keeping Lancashire up top. But yes, in the spirit of Gary Rowett, I thought I would go crimes against football. So at the back, Jamie Cumming, as we said, that is absolutely no explanation needed. Jack Curry over Greg Lee. Yes, Greg Lee, he popped up with a few goals every now and then, and he was a big part towards the back end of the season. But I think that if you looked at both of them, man for man, I think that Curry is comfortably a better player, especially I think more equipped to championship level, and he has more to give, and he's still improving. Kieran Brown, Hellick, Davies. I think if we had that back three this season, we would be conceding a lot less. Ben Nelson. Leicester, what are you doing? You're not playing him. Just give him back over. Like, set him free, set him over, because we desperately need him. Especially after I always felt more assured and more comfortable whenever I saw Ben Nelson playing, and in the last half of the season when Kieran Brown was out, the relationship he had with Hellick, it just seemed completely natural, and I felt going into every game, I was a lot more assured that we weren't going to concede, and it would be even more frustrating when we did, because we knew how locked in our defence would be. And then with Brody Spencer, yes, I see. I did think about putting in Sam Long because of how he'd stepped up last season when a lot of people had written him off. But I again with Curry over Greg Lee, I think that it's Spencer offers a lot more, I think, and shows a lot more quality than he does compared to Sam Long or even Kyoso before he went out over the season, and Tiervest. And then Will Volks, I mean, he had a bit of a torrid start, but you could see that he was through when he got over that. He became a bit of a player that was in the shadows, but the best of him came out in that. I think that his vocalization on the pitch. By the way, while Brannigan's out, I don't understand why Hellick is captain. I personally think Zvolk should be, because he's so vocal on the field and he really gives that leadership presence when he steps on there. And he has big fuck off long throws, which unfortunately every other club in the country saw us do, decided we'll do that as well. So they're now obsolete. But you could definitely see, like, in that first game against Norwich, his vision for a pass, and I still think that he has that. Brannigan, no explanation needed. Brian de Keersmacher, again, I think no explanation needed. He got his goal from against Preston, but he went off the ball, I think, for a few games before that. But he does still show up with these pieces of quality every now and then, and more consistently than most. And then Ruben Rodriguez. My hot take is that if we had Ruben Rodriguez, we would have a lot more teeth about us up front. Yeah. Because he would run into places, he would run into areas. He is that creativity man that we're missing, and we got rid of, and we let him go. I know that a lot of those funds probably would have been reinvested to bring in someone like De Keersmacher, but I'm telling you, if we still had Rodriguez, we would be creating a lot more, and we would be scoring a lot more as well. And that boy up top would be touching nearly 10 goals. I'm telling you. Mm. Oh, yeah. And as Will said, Lancashire over Harris, because numbers speak for themselves.
So, obviously, a couple of differences between you. Obviously, you mentioned about the right-back spots. Obviously, like you said, over the past season, we had 4 right-backs operate in that role. If this was for 2024-25, I think Kyoto would have a good argument. I thought he was really good at the first half of the 24-25 campaign. Did go off the boil a bit after Gary Rowett came in. Will, speak to me about, because obviously both of you selected Kieran Brown and Ben Nelson. Why did you pick Nelson over Hellick?
Nelson over Hellick. I just think Nelson just all round is a better player. That's just what I think. I mean, Hellick, you could argue he's more commanding, I suppose, and he does get a goal every now and again. But like Nelson, I just think he just has more quality about him. Mm-hmm. He just has sort of like almost like more vision about him. I'm not quite sure how to put it. I just think he's a better footballer. And maybe I'm also just being very nostalgic because I miss him from last season. I think that I'm not saying that if he was in defence, we'd be getting a clean sheet every game. But maybe there's a bit of nostalgia there. But I do just think that just like when it comes down to it, just he is a better football player than Hellick. Hellick's definitely got his qualities, but I just think Ben Nelson is just a better player. I know that's not a very technical answer. That's just my opinion. I think for one thing I will say about this lineup, Connor, is that the formation, I guess width was never an option. I think if I came into a game and I saw Gary Rowett was putting this on the pitch, it's very defensive. I'm not quite sure. Like, also Ruben Rodriguez, definitely we are missing him. But Ruben Rodriguez, do you remember? Like, he used to always get a little bit moody if things weren't going his way on the pitch. I don't know if you guys remember from last season, the season before. And I think if Ruben Rodriguez came into the ground and saw that he's going to be put in the position in that squad, I don't think he'd be very pleased with
it. No, he did have a lip on him, didn't he?
Yeah.
But it is something that is worth mentioning, because obviously you've both picked Ruben, Will's picked Crast Evan Mills. Over 2025 has been a serious lack of creativity about Oxford United. spoilers for Mike, no place for Ole Romane. I think he's been the best out of the 3 players I'm going to name, but even then he's really lacked consistency. No Romane, no Dembele, no Pochetta, no Goodrum. There's been a real lack of output from those players operating in the wider positions or in that in the hole behind the number 9.
I mean, I'll tell you one thing. If Goodrum had continued the form that he had in the first half of last season, he would have probably earned a space in my top 11 because he definitely had output. If you think of he was brilliant under Des Buckingham. Obviously, Gary Rowett has a different style of football, and so it doesn't quite fit him as well. But he was a damn good player, and the goals he was getting, I know a lot of them were sort of won the goals, but for a winger at least, he definitely had a lot to give the football club, I think. And it's a shame that he sort of tapered off as the season progressed. And obviously this season he's been missing for most of it. So yeah, he's got no chance.
And like you mentioned, Connor, with the, you both mentioned it about Lancashire's the only real choice because, again, we've had a fair number of strikers feature for us in the number 9 role. Obviously Tom Bradshaw, Sparky, Prelic, Lancashire. I think there's one more that I'm forgetting. But we've had a lot of players operating in that role, and Lancashire's the only one who's got a somewhat decent goal return and has been relatively consistent. Obviously, taking out Rowett's tendency to take him out of the lineup if he doesn't have a good game. Even though player who brings in Mike Harris, said time and time again, runs his arse off, but hasn't got much output.
Yeah, I always say to the blokes sitting next to me, "Oh God, but don't he work hard?" It's all right running around working hard. I get it. I get why you do it, but your main job is to put the ball in the back of the net, mate.
Mm. So another one I just want to quickly touch on is again, obviously, all of the midfielders, bar one of Connor's, have only had really 6 months of output. I say that for Brannigan because obviously he's had a couple of big injuries in 2025. And obviously Will Vaulks this time last year was really struggling in Oxford United shirt. You mentioned kind of about how kind of he's really stepped up, and I agree. I think he should be the vice captain, not just for the ambassadorial stuff he does off the pitch, but the way he carries himself on the pitch. Will, obviously, I'll just show the viewers again your lineup. Why leave Vaulks out in place of 2 players like we say who've only got really 6 months of display for the club?
It was a difficult one. No doubt Vaulks has done well. And honestly, for the stuff he's done off the pitch, he could earn a place on this. For the stuff he's done off the field, he could earn a place in my squad regardless. Because, obviously, that speaks for itself. But I don't know. I just think Cam Brannigan and De Kersmacher, they're almost maybe it's not very logical. They're almost like immovable. Like they're obviously going to be there because they're such key players to our squad. De Kersmacher for his quality and for his vision, and just like the balls, like I said earlier, the balls that he pings out, the quality that he's shown. Brannigan, I think for obvious reasons, we know he's a brilliant player. We know he's got like a monster shot on him. We know that he works really hard. He will fight for every ball. So and also for the formation that I picked, I didn't really see a space for Vaulks in there. But it's not to say that he's a bad player. And he does, obviously he has his attributes to him, namely the long throw. But I think for me, I think with that formation, with the players I'd already picked, like Brannigan, De Kersmacher or Vaulks, I think when it comes to those players, Vaulks is always going to come third.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's fair play. So just a final few points on Connor's 11. Again, we've mentioned about fullbacks and stuff like that. We have seen with Oxford United that when we try to use the fullbacks as the width, it has mixed results. I'm still of the opinion, Connor, that Greg Lee is our best attacking fullback. on the left hand side against Jack Curry. Obviously, you mentioned that Jack Curry is probably better defensively. Have you come round to Jack Curry also being almost the complete left back for Oxford, or do you still kind of maintain what we were discussing last season about that? We've got two different profiles of right back in Curry and Lee.
I think at this moment it is better that we have two different profiles in left back, so we're not one dimensional. Or so one-dimensional. We have those options if we need it. Like, I get why Rowett switches it up can switch it up, but switching it up too often can, lead to fans start asking questions that you don't know who your best left back is. But I guess that's because, as you say, so we have the option that we have two different styles of players if we need it. And, amount of times last season where Greg Lee came on and either put on a shift or saved our bacon with popping up from a goal. Because it sounds strange, but he is one of our biggest threats, he can be one of our biggest threats from corners, just because of how the spring he has and the leap that he has to be able to reach to head into the back of the net. And he can play almost near enough anywhere down that left-hand side as well, can't he?
I was going to say, I have wondered it. We were asking questions under Des of why is Greg playing at left wing. I'd like to see that from time to time this season, just to try and mix things up and put pressure on the wings we've actually got. So let's complete the set and add some more players for consideration. This is my lineup. Jeremy Cumming in goal, back four of Long, Nelson, Hellick and Brown, Volks, De Keersmaker and Brannigan, Rodriguez, Matos and Will Lancashire. We've talked at length about the majority of the players here. Sam Long, I thought that back four, there were times last season, I think in the Sunderland game is one of them where we deployed it. I just thought that back four looked dynamite. Obviously, it's a very... it's something that Pep Guardiola has done at times in recent years. It's something a lot of managers have done, playing four players in a flat back four that are naturally centre backs. But it gives you the defensive cover, and obviously Longy started his career as a right back, and Kieran Brown came into us as a left back. So we know they can operate in those roles. And I thought, across 2025, those lads have been unbelievable. So the midfield, like you mentioned about Volks and De Keersmaker and Brannigan, I was sat for a long time thinking, you were mulling over who comes in, who gets the start in my 11, and I couldn't see any reason to take any of them out. Like you say, we've got a full year of Volks, and De Keersmaker 6 months have been very impressive. Brannigan, as you mentioned, is a constant starter, and then this slightly modified 4-3-2-1 with Ruben Rodriguez. We've talked about in the past Ruben's qualities. He is kind of the problem solver player that we've been lacking at times this season. And only played 25 minutes in Brazil. Come home, Ruben, please. And then Alex Matos is a bit of a rogue one, I acknowledge. But from what we saw of him last season, I thought he was mightily impressive. Conor, if I'm right, hasn't had the best of times at Sheffield United.
No, it hasn't. Alex, mate, you should have come back here. We would... All jokes aside, if we had him again, we could have been a completely different side again this season. But, to be fair, if you had to weigh up between Sheffield United, who just lost in the Championship playoff final, and Oxford United, I think we all know who we were going to. But yeah, he hasn't had the best of times there. Unfortunately, I don't think he's having the best of time of it at the moment. So you never know in January. You never know.
I'm sure the £10 million that Sheffield United paid to Chelsea didn't hurt too much either. But yeah, I thought there were times last season where we were chatting and just constantly raving about Alex Matos and his hard work, his obviously in this system we're kind of harkening back to periods last season, most notably obviously the Burnley game, where Rowett operated with Matos in the 10, and yeah, bit of a combative number 10, which is sometimes you need. And yeah, Lancashire up top. You've both spoken about. He's the only real striker we've had over the over the year that scored a decent amount of goals. So he was kind of the only real choice. I did consider Stan Mills, but as much as I love Stan, I don't think the back end of last season was sufficient enough. I think obviously this first 6 months of the 25-26 campaign has been pretty good.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's also why I didn't put him in there, because back end of last season it wasn't great, but he's definitely, you can definitely see the Stan Mills that we had in League One and that we grew to love in League One, and I'm just so desperate that something clicks for him and that some of the balls that he puts in will be able to find a striker.
Mm-hmm.
I love that ball so much.
I know, he's one of them players that obviously I think comes from Leeds. Obviously moved to Everton as a youngster, but he seems to get it. And there were a lot of stories about him and Ruben and Sparky in the promotion campaign. So I think he just seems to get the football club quite honestly. So those are the three teams. I think going across them, the first thing we need to do is we need to agree on one formation, because that's obviously going to determine. The first thing is what the back line looks like. Obviously, Connor, are you going to make a fight over your five at the back system, or is that just more in the spirit of this is Gary Rowett's Oxford United, and then Gary Rowett's side this season, I should say?
I'm flexible.
So I think, well, what do you think in terms of? Because I guess it does depend on because two of our sides do include at least three of that of the back four. Agreed on, which is Nelson, Brown, and then you two have got Jack Curry. So I think by the majority vote that Jack Curry does have to come into the lineup. Kieran Brown is in all three of our lineups, so he gets a place. So does Ben Nelson. And based on that majority rule, Sam Long starts as the right back. So midfield, again, this is a difficult one, because all of us have got De Keersmaker and Brannigan, but it's again how we want to shape up in the midfield. I think probably we might have to go with the three in midfield, just because you really can't separate them. Obviously, other than Matos, they've been the only midfielders we've played this season.
Yeah, that's pretty grim when you think about it.
It is. No room for Louis Sibley, I'm afraid, chap. His lad's just disappeared. I think he was while we were in Charlton. I think he was on holiday in like Dorset or something over the weekend. But so I think that's the midfield. Now we need to. I think we've all got Ruben in our lineup, and we've all got Lancashire up top. Then what that leaves us with is, do we want Stan Mills, Philippe Krastev, or Alex Matos? I think what we mentioned that we all did consider Stan Mills. Have you got any preference, Will, as to who that final man in this joint 11 is?
Oh, what out of Stan Mills or Krastev?
Stan Mills, Krastev, and Matos are the three.
Oh gosh, can I say Beheta? No. Yeah, I will stick. I think I'll go with Stan Mills. I just think, yes, his performances at the end of last season weren't up to scratch, but we know what a brilliant player he is because of how he played in League One. And like he's been the player this season that when we see him coming off the bench, we think, okay, thank goodness Stan Mills is coming onto the pitch. Maybe we got a chance of getting something out of this. And I think most games when he comes on, he has an instant impact. You know, running down the wing, he gives us those options, gives us the width and the pace. He hasn't obviously like scored as many goals as we would have liked. I think he's still got a lot more to show us, but I think I will stick to Stan Mills for that reason. As good as Dembele and Plato have been, I think I'm going to pick Stan Mills.
Connor, who would your vote be for out of those three lads?
I'm going to have to stick with him, boy. I'm going to have to stick with Stanley Mills.
Good lad. So Stan Mills also gets my vote. So the John, we'll use Wills as the example. A 4-3-3 with Cumming, Long, Nelson, Brown, and Curry, Volks, De Keersmacher, Brannigan, Ruben Rodriguez, Stan Mills, and Will Lancashire. I think if we had that lineup, I think obviously Ben Nelson does. Nelson, I think we saw last season what happened when we had Ben Nelson in the lineup. I think if Ben Nelson was in this side, maybe we'd be a bit higher up the league. What are we thinking, Connor?
I think we would be higher up the league, yeah. Maybe not shooting up the league, but there would definitely be a noticeable difference.
Well, what do you reckon? Is that that combined side, is that breaching the top half, or is it kind of midway through the bottom?
Ooh, reaching the top half. I wouldn't say so, but I would say that we're not going to be in the relegation zone with that side. I just think with Ruben, we'd have a lot more creativity up front, and we'd have the problem solver who can actually get us sort of through teams rather than just coming at them head on. And I think with Ben Nelson in defence, there'd be less sort of silly mistakes that have costed us points this game. There'd be a bit more solidity at the back, a bit more intelligence. So yeah, I think I'm not going to go so far as to say we'd be in the top half, but I do think we'd be out of the relegation zone at the very least.
I think you're right. With Ruben and with Mills, I think we'd be a lot more robust in the attacking third. You've mentioned kind of him on previous occasions that Ruben, he's got a little bit of a temper problem, a little bit like Shemi, but I think Ruben, when he gets frustrated, I think he often plays into that and becomes a bit of a better player, whereas Shemi seems to disappear a bit. But that's our combined 11 of Oxford United's best for 2025. As we mentioned, it's a bit bleak. Some of the looking through and seeing the limited options in midfield. We've had the fact that we've had one striker really. The wingers have done the square at a sod all pretty much. But I was going to say there's only the only way is up, but at the minute we're sat in the relegation zone, so. To be honest, it could get a whole lot worse. We could be doing this next year and talking about a combined 11 from the end of a championship season, the beginning of a League One campaign. But yeah, any final thoughts, Connor?
No. Just as we said as we were discussing in the interval, I'm really looking forward to Bromley away.
Well. Any final thoughts? What League One away are you looking forward to?
You know what? I won't go with that. I'll say, as I was saying in the interval, I don't think it's a done deal. I still think there's hope. It's not over till it's over. Until the final game of the season, we still got a chance of staying up, unless it's obviously mathematically impossible. I think, like I said, my logic when I'm just being hopeful. Oxford, we can do anything, blah blah blah. But when I try and think about it logically, I think this championship is so poor. And there are only 2 relegation spots up for grabs because, we can't get any lower than Sheffield Wednesday, literally. And teams are so up and down, teams are so inconsistent, and maybe we can sort of take advantage of that. But on the other hand, we are also one of those teams that are so up and down and so inconsistent. Well, not up. We're so down. We're so inconsistent. We don't win games against teams near us that we should win. But no, I won't jinx it. I won't say my favourite League One away. I'm going to say there is still hope. We still have just as much a chance to stay up as any other team does. You never know. It could all turn around in the new year. New Year's resolution for Gary Rowett, whoever is in the dugout. But that's what I'll say. But I will say also, okay, if we were to go down to League One, the one good thing, well, I don't know if it's a good thing, Oxford, Reading, and Swindon in the same league is going to be tasty. Come on, that's got to be good. Thames Valley Police might need a bit of extra funding for that one. Thurn and Wickham as well. Northampton there nearby. That's not a derby, but whatever. That could be quite interesting. Yeah.
You realise we'd lose all those games, Will?
Sorry?
You realise we'd lose all those games. We kind of build it up as, we're the side coming back down from the Championship. We're looking to go straight back up. We get fucking beat.
Yeah. But you never know. It might not reach that because we might stay up. And I still think we've got every chance we have to stay in this division. So I'm going to stay hopeful. That's basically, come on, guys. You gotta approach it, with I don't know what I'm saying right now. I still think we have a chance. It's not a done deal, basically, is what I'm saying. It's not, we're not already relegated. Okay, we still have a chance. We're not even in the new year yet. Come on.
Gary. This is what you've done, Gary. Will was trying to be positive, and now he's just started spiraling and doesn't know what he's saying.
We still got a chance.
Hopefully. That's a nice note to end off 2025 with a little bit of positivity. Thank you so much, folks, for all the support this year for walking in the London Road. We massively appreciate every single view, every like, every comment, every share, every subscribe. It's all very much appreciated. We're obviously, there's an awful lot of Oxford United podcasts, and we're just a couple of fans trying to get our opinion across about the football club we love. So we massively appreciate all the support. As I mentioned in last week's video, we'll be back after the Sheffield United game to cover all the festive games. We'll also, as I mentioned in that video, if Gary Rowett does depart, we will go live with a special video to break that all down and maybe spiral about what our chances might be of staying in the Championship then. But thanks so much for watching us in 2025. We'll see you next year.